Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024, and this is the special meeting of the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board. I hereby call this meeting to order. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you could please stand and join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we are going to take a moment of silent reflection. Okay, next we are going to move on to, we have no public speakers today, so we're going to skip that section and we will move on to the adoption of agenda and approval of consent items. I will go through and see if anybody has any items they would like to pull. Ms. Clymer?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to pull item 5.11 just for further clarification.
Ms. Moran?
Yes, I'd like to pull item 5.6, classified hires.
Ms. Wallace?
No, I have nothing to pull.
Mr. Owens?
Nothing, thanks.
I have nothing either, so if someone would like to make a motion to approve minus 5.6 and 5.11.
I move to approve the consent agenda minus items 5.6 and 5.11 as presented.
I will second.
Having a motion from Ms. Clymer and a second from Ms. Moran, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Okay. Now we are going to move back to item, I guess now that will be 6.1, the classified personnel employment. I'll let you talk about that, Ms. Moran.
Yes, I pulled this item off of the consent agenda to find out more information about our new Director of Food Services. If you could tell me more about the hiring and interview process, as well as a little bit about our new director's qualifications and experience, I would appreciate it.
President's item, Ms. Moran, I'm going to go and have Executive Director.
We use the same process for the Director of Food Services that we have the other ones. We utilized school stakeholders to interview the 3 most qualified applicants. These 3 applicants all brought many years of food service experience to the table, some 15 to 20 years. The team unanimously chose Mr. Tim Ely, who is currently serving as our nutrition coordinator. He served in the director role prior to coming to Litchfield and is excited about. He's been with us for the last 4 years in that area.
Okay, excellent. Can you tell me one more time how to properly pronounce his name?
Tim Ely.
Ely. Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions on this item?
I do not.
Ms. Wallace?
No.
Mr. Owens?
I do not.
I don't have any questions either. If someone would like to make a motion.
I will move to approve agenda item 6.1, the classified personnel employment position change with new employment agreement / renewal with salary exception as presented.
I'll second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. And we will now move on to former 5.11, which is now 6.2. Ms. Clymer, I will let you start that.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Dr. Doozy, if you can give me just a little bit of clarification on the financial impact. I see that we've had a change in the people attending, and so I just want to make sure that we have the right figures down at the bottom so that we can get you the right approval.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to clarify that there was a couple errors on that statement on the memo that I provided. We are sending 5 district employees to be traded for SEPTED. We had to make some changes from the Title IX compliance and legal compliance coordinator because that position still is unfilled but in process. And so we added our director of construction as well as for another spot because our architect and our builder are also going to this training, and it'll be a great opportunity to ensure our next building meets all the compliance of SEPTED and also build that partnership. And then I added Executive Director Program Instruction, Ms. Benjamin, to come in the place of the Title IX coordinator to ensure that she was actually in the next round of training. So I just pulled her up to be trained next instead of waiting for another 4 or 5 months. So, and then the financial impact needs to be revised. The conference cost would be revised to 5 people to $3,475. The flight approximately is $1,750 for all 5 district employees. The hotel is approximately $1,100 for the week. So that's totaling $5,500. And then the meals are actually correct. I got the food right, but is for 5 people based on the daily rate allowed for travel is $1,475. So that total financial impact should be reflected as $12,200.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. I will make a motion correctly, but do you want to ask for questions?
Does anyone have any other questions? Ms. Moran, Mr. Owens, Ms. Wallace? Anyone?
I don't have any questions, but since we pulled this off, I just want to say I'm really excited about you all going to this because as is implicated by the summary here, the design of our schools is super important. And since we have the opportunity to learn more before we design and finalize our new school, I think it's great that you're going and learning more about this, and hopefully we can impact our existing schools as well.
If there are no other questions, if you'd like to make a motion.
Okay. I move to approve item 6.2, the ratification of out-of-state travel request for National Institute of Crime Prevention through environmental design with the revision of the financial impact being for 5 individuals across each component here. I don't remember the total cost. I apologize, but
12,200.
12,200.
I will
I'll second.
Oh, sorry.
Having a motion from Ms. Clymer and a second from Mr. Owens, I will call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Mr. Owens.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Okay. Next, we are going to move on. Wow, look at us just moving along, everybody. We are going to move on to action items. The first one is consideration of changes to the board meeting calendar for the remainder of the year. Since we have a new board member, I thought it was good for us to kind of look at this, and we were figuring out there was a couple of conflicts on some things. So there is a calendar, a redlined calendar in there, which shows just a couple of the changes. And I did want to know if anyone else, after looking at that, had found any conflicts for themselves before we. Ms. Clymer, did you have any? Nothing has changed except for the one that's being moved in October to the 15th. We're going to cancel a meeting in October and cancel a meeting in June.
Okay. Yes, I have everything on my calendar. No, I'm good. I don't have any changes.
Did we, I'm sorry, wow, this is really, did we,
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think we changed them to the July 9th, right?
So the July, yeah.
Second is now July 9th, right?
Hold on.
But that's not noted on here.
Yes, so there's a couple of changes I was going to bring up. One, our meeting, we canceled the meeting on June 11th, but our meeting on the 25th now has to become our regular meeting because we have to have one once a month. So we'll need to modify that when we do make the motion. We'll make the motion with some changes. The special meeting is now a regular meeting on June 25th. Our meeting is on July 9th, which it was moved and then it was moved to the 2nd, but now it's back on the 9th again. However, that meeting is going to be at 5, not 6.
We, like, that's what I'm saying. Did we do that last meeting?
We haven't changed it on this thing because we don't have to bring this forward every time we make changes. We're able to make changes through our board secretary, but because we're making changes and we have a new board member, I wanted to make sure that she got to weigh in on the rest of the meetings for the year. So that's why it's being brought forward now. But otherwise, there has been some changes that have been made that weren't made on here.
Okay, yeah. So I don't have any issues with the changes. I do, right now, I don't know if I'll be able to attend the July 9th meeting.
Okay.
But, I'll try. And then, other than that, yeah.
And then I believe we need to note on this, the 5 PM start time on the July 9th.
Right.
Okay.
Did you have any conflicts or anything with this?
I
Ms.
actually
Moran?
do, but I'm fine with missing a meeting. So I will be out of town for the July 23rd meeting. I scheduled, well, my extended family scheduled a vacation that week. How dare they? So I am going to have to go with the 30+ people schedules. And I will not be zooming in from Mexico for that.
What do you
Sorry.
mean? Ms. Wallace, did you have any things we needed to look at with these changes?
The only one I cannot attend is also the July 23rd.
Oh. So Ms. Clymer and Mr. Owens, you guys can make July 23rd, right? Because we need to have a quorum. And I do know that we're probably going to have quite a bit of things on that agenda because we're making the July 9th one a little bit lighter.
I am available on July 23rd.
Okay, just want to make sure we're going to have quorum. If we need to look at a different date, you're gone like the whole week, Ms. Moran? Or are you gone like the whole time too?
I am, yes.
Okay, so basically we're just going to leave it and we'll have a quorum. We'll be good. Okay. So that's the only date. Did you have any other, nothing? Okay. So with that, I will just make the motion to make sure we get all the things. So I would like to motion that we approve the amended governing board meeting schedule as presented with the following changes of our special governing board meeting being changed to a regular meeting on June 25th, as well as a 5 PM start for our meeting on July 9th.
I will second.
Okay, having a motion from myself and a second from Ms. Clymer, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Mr. Owens.
Yay.
I'm also a yay, motion passes. Okay, next is the Arizona School Board Association political agenda for 2025. We have to have this in very soon. So that's why we brought it to you guys today. This is where we get the opportunity to pick 5 items that we as a board feel are very important and we would like them to focus on when the legislature goes back in session next year. I hope that everybody had a chance to kind of look through the political agenda and see if they had things that they wanted to do. I know we are in talks about what our relationship is going to be with ASBA going forward, but right now we're part of ASBA, so I feel like we need to do our part while we're part of it. So I'll just go through and see if you have any that caught your attention or you think would be important for us to be putting forward as our important priorities. Ms. Clymer?
Yes, there's plenty of these that are really important. Is it possible for us to just continue the same ones that we selected last year or bring those up for Board Member Wallace to review and approve? Only because there's 1,000 things on here and there's not that much that is different in terms of priorities of this board from when we just approved this, whatever, 6 or 8 months ago. So is it possible for us to just pull up that and work from that document instead of this huge one?
Well, we would have approved this a year ago, last year, around the same time
Okay.
probably. But yeah, I can see if, we don't have that in front.
Okay, we'll go
of-
through everybody else. That's just
Okay.
my take on it. I don't have anything different than what I said last year, so
Okay.
I can pull that up and my priorities are the same.
Okay, Ms. Moran?
Yeah, I feel like I'm likely a broken record here as well. Under the funding, my favorite is bullet number 1, maximizing state funding for education. Under local control, I like bullet 2 because I am a broken record on that as well, changing the override/budget increase language. We don't have to fight that battle soon, but it would be great if we could get better verbiage when the time comes. Student outcomes, I like bullet 5. Support policy that recognizes, respects, and promotes teaching as a profession. As well as bullet 10, support legislation and access to funding that will allow school districts to offer school meals to all students free of charge. And under accountability, I like bullet 1, establish financial and academic transparency for all institutions and individuals that accept public funds. And my last one, I had 6 that I highlighted. My last one was under safety. Bullet 1, provide funding to individual districts to implement locally directed research-based school safety programs and mental health and well-being initiatives.
Okay. Ms. Wallace, did you get a chance to review this and pick some that were important to you?
I did, and I have some similar to Miss Moran, so this should hopefully get us in the right direction. I also chose the first one in the first section of maximize state funding for competitive salaries to attract, recruit, and retain talented teachers and staff. I also had I didn't count the bullets. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4th bullet, fully fund full day kindergarten, including kindergarten students in the override calculations. I think that full day kindergarten should be funded. We are a district that provides full day kindergarten, and most districts do. I think that's something important for the state to fund fully. Another one that I selected, I didn't actually select this one. It's kind of a joke, but I thought that the equal system for signatures would be great because as I have been in the process of collecting signatures, that'd be great. I'm not serious about that one though. And then under improve outcomes for all students, I had selected to support legislation to access funding that would allow school districts to offer school meals to all students free of charge. And under school safety and security, bullet point 1, providing funding for individual districts to implement locally directed research-based school safety programs and mental health and well-being initiatives.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, I'm good with the same ones I did last year.
Okay, for mine, most of mine were in funding. I agreed with bullet point 1. I also agreed with full day kindergarten. And I also had to provide funding for new space before existing schools exceed their maximum capacity and become overcrowded, and provide dedicated and flexible ongoing maintenance funding. Advocate for the SFOB to set up a standard for replacement of buildings that have exceeded their useful life. Advocate for capacity standards that reflect the design of instructional space. So since we're dealing with that right now, kind of our schools are overfull and we had to go out for a bond, and we have our kids that are crammed into classes way more than we would like to have in each classroom at the moment. I feel like that's important to us at the moment. I also had the support legislation and access to funding that would allow school districts to offer school meals to all students free of charge. We saw what a benefit that was during COVID and how many of our kids we were able to feed every day because of that. So I would like to see that happen more and again. But that was mine. I mean, I think we all could get on board with almost all of these. So it's really hard to say, here's my 5. So we have a few that had a few people say them. So I feel like we should definitely have those be our top ones. You didn't give me yours specifically, Ms. Clymer, because you were good with last year.
I didn't. They were actually, I can't remember all of Kim's, but they were basically board member Moran's with the addition of kindergarten. So I had 6 also, but I can't remember which one was switched out. So again, I would just take those same ones. And I believe Ms. Wallace had the same ones. So I don't think there's a lot of daylight between all those choices.
In going through this, we have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 that had 2 members, well, or 3, pick them. So did we want to come up with a 5th and 6th one? Do we want to just put those 4 in our thing?
Will you read those 4 really
Okay,
quickly?
so the first one was maximize state funding for competitive salaries to attract, recruit, retain talented teachers and staff, increase the pipeline of certified teachers, increase the diversity of teaching workforce, and for difficult to fill positions. We had fully fund full day kindergarten and include kindergarten students in the override calculations. support legislation and access to funding that would allow school districts to offer school meals to all students free of charge, and provide funding to individual districts to implement locally directed research-based school safety programs and mental health and well-being initiatives. Those were the four that had,
Okay. So do you want us all to agree to those four and then add two, or?
so
How do you wanna-
yeah, if everyone is okay with those four, I would say, well, let's keep those four. And then if we want to pick two more, or if we want to say, we're just going to go with those four, I'm fine with whatever we want to do. What are your thoughts, Ms. Moran?
It doesn't matter to me. I'm fine with adding more, but I mean, to your point, all of these are important. The ones that apply to us, obviously some of the ones for rural districts and that sort of thing don't apply. But I am a huge advocate for transparency. So I think the financial and academic transparency would be my like next vote, the bullet number 1 under the accountability for taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that also.
Yes, I could agree with that too. Ms. Wallace?
Yes, I only didn't select it because I was looking at it in a lens of what we are currently doing. And I think that the district is very good at that. So more what could be improved.
Yes, we
further.
are. The point of this point is because charter schools do not
Do
have
not.
that.
I
Yeah,
understand.
nor do private schools, who are clearly now getting public school funding.
Mhm.
Mr.
Okay, I'm fine with that, adding that one.
So that would put us at 5 if we added that one. Mr. Owens?
Sorry, what's the question?
How are you feeling about those 5 being our ones that we put forward? But well, I mean, we'll make a motion. If you have any others that you think we're missing.
So, while I think during COVID obviously was a great, I don't subscribe to this legislation to access funding to allow for every student to get free meals. I think it's very important that we identify those students that need the assistance and that need the financial aid, and those families. But there are there's families that are fully capable of paying for their children's meals, and it shouldn't be up to us to tell the government to spend that money for when people are capable of spending the money. So I don't feel like advocating for that. I mean, other ones are fine. Having been fresh off of attending as the representative of this, what it was a room full of one person from every school district sitting in a room, wordsmithing these to death. That's all we did. They read through every single one and we wordsmithed it, and people would come up and they would want to change it and they would add them, and and then we would vote on this antiquated thing that took forever. And, these are the exact same as last year. I understand that maybe they want to get an idea of, okay, hey, like this seems to be the central theme amongst a majority of the schools and whatnot. But at the end of the day, these are all going to be their legislative agenda. So I'm fine if we want to vote on that. I do not personally support that. No offense with your equal. I don't think that helps push through the candidates who have the most interest and actually put skin in the game to run. But other than that, I'm fine with the other stuff. So.
Ms. Clymer?
What's the question?
So I guess the question is that, what are your thoughts about the lunch one? Do we leave that, or?
I mean, I think if 4 members here agree to it, then we just put it for a vote. And if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And I mean, we're voting on the 4 plus the 1, the
Right.
transparency one for all 5. So I think it's just a vote like anything else. We just,
Okay.
I mean, to your point earlier, we may or may not be a part of this organization for who knows how long. And I think to Mr. Owen's point, we can wordsmith this to death, but we really want all of these things to happen. Well, almost all of them. I mean, a good portion of them. So I'm not sure that us going between one or the other is making a gigantic difference, but I do feel like those are somewhat in line with the priorities as much as can be based on everything that's on this page. So I think if everyone is open to it, we just put it for a vote and see where it lands.
Okay, Ms. Moran, any more thoughts?
Nope, sounds like a good game plan to me.
Ms. Wallace, any more thoughts?
No, I think that while we can say what we want, that we're not the ones particularly advocating for these things anyway, so I think it's important for them to know what schools are wanting, but I don't think that those are going to be the only ones they go for anyway, so.
That is very true. So Mr. Owens is not wrong. It is a long day of them wordsmithing every single thing. So it's a lot. Okay, if somebody would like to make a motion then, or I can do it if I need to. Yeah, okay. So I'll make sure I say the right words. Okay, I motion to approve the submission of the Litchfield Elementary School District selected ASBA political agenda topics as discussed and agreed upon this evening. Do you need me to read all of the points again, Ms. Kim over there? Or, okay, I'm like, I have them marked over here. Okay.
I will second.
Okay, having a motion from myself and a second from Ms. Clymer, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Mr. Owens.
Nay.
I'm a yay, motion passes. Okay, we're going to move on to discussion items. Man, I feel like it's my turn to be like Mr. Vaughn tonight. We are going to talk about the board retreat. We have a new board member. I'm very excited about this. We haven't been able to have a board retreat in a while, but we have a full functioning board that's ready to work together and collaborate and come up with goals for ourselves, our district, our superintendent. And so we would like to look at doing one this summer. And the point of this discussion is to discuss when we'd like to do it, what we'd like it to look like, and what is the goals we want to accomplish in having the board retreat. I would like to have us do it before we go back to school because I think it's important to set goals specifically for our superintendent so that he has his goals for the year set. I am open to whether we want to do a full day or half day or 2 half days or whatever anybody thinks we want to do. And that might be, we have to figure that out after we figure out what all we want to accomplish in that. As far as what we'd like to accomplish, I just see us setting some goals for ourselves, our district, and our superintendent. That's what I kind of hope. And just kind of us getting to get to know each other a little bit and figure out how we're going to work together as a team for the rest of this year and potentially forward, depending on how things go at the end of the year. So I know that I have had some discussions with Dr. Davidson, and it looks like if we want to do it before school starts, there's some time at the end of July, but now is looking like that might not work because you two are gone. So we might need to tweak that a little bit. When are you two back from your stuff? Okay.
I'm back the 27th.
Dr. Davidson, when we had talked, you said the beginning of that week, right? At the end of.
I'm back the 29th, Monday.
Okay. So like the beginning of that week before school starts, we could potentially do like an afternoon session, right? Because you guys have stuff obviously school is starting and the teachers are going to be coming back and stuff.
What about the week of July 14th?
That would be a question for Dr. Davidson on that one.
I know I'm not available the 12th to the 29th.
Oh, okay. So what about on the 9th when we have our board meeting in the evening?
Dr. Davidson will not be here, so we can't do it then.
Okay, is this a board retreat or is this?
Well, it's going to be us working with Dr. Davidson to set goals with him for the year.
Okay, so if we have two half-day sessions, would Dr. Davidson need to be at both of those? Because there's a couple other topics I would like to discuss.
Okay.
Obviously the superintendent evaluation, the goals, but the tool and the criteria as well. The strategic plan, as well as get a timeline and dig a little bit deeper on our policy review and audit that we're going to be doing. That's obviously, I think, as a board, our biggest project for next year. The week before school starts, I personally like to attend, the new teacher induction and things like that. So I feel like that week isn't ideal for a retreat, especially if to set goals for school that starts the next week. I think earlier in the summer would be better for that, but
What about in June? Is there any dates in June that work well for everyone?
What timeline are we shooting for? Like,
Well, depending on how much,
Earlier.
I mean, right now, I mean, I think we're probably gonna end up with either 2 half days or 1 full day to do it
okay,
with how much we'd like to do and get accomplished.
okay.
But in doing that, I was hoping we can get it done before school starts. Obviously, we want to set our goals for the year before school starts. If there's things that we can discuss after school starts, we could possibly break that out to be after school starts. I don't know. June, I'm playing.
I mean, I hear the word retreat. I gotta like pack my tent and camping gear and stuff.
I thought cabana.
Right? Like or retreat, right?
well,
Well,
I think if we just, I think 2 half days would be better because I think in the first one, we need to really get into the strategic plan. And that's going to then facilitate our understanding and our discussion on the goals, because the goals have got to go back to the strategic plan. And right now that's still very unsolidified.
okay.
I'm just throwing dates out there because I feel like we're stuck there.
Yep, sorry, go
That
ahead.
whole last week in June, I'm available.
I'm not, sorry.
Okay.
So, no last week.
Objection. There's got to be some kind of like Excel spreadsheet or whatever where we
Right,
can
like-
put dates in and cross.
Can't you do like can we do like a doodle poll thing where people can put it, can we do that?
Who's like
How
the
about June 13? We're just gonna start throwing out
head of
random
math
dates.
department?
Okay, so on the 14th, we have our executive session for the superintendent review. That's half day.
Mhm.
Right.
Would we want to take up some time in the afternoon for the first half day of the retreat? Or do we think the superintendent review will be short since it's not a full review?
I do think it might be short. I do think that's possible that we could put this as part of that. I mean, what are your, Dr. Davidson, that's okay. Feel free to chime in because you're part of this, like,
I'm just listening, President Zion, but no, certainly the 14th, that would be great if board members had time. We're already together. And, that gives me a few weeks. I'm working through that document that I had presented just to make certain we have evidence and artifacts for that conversation. And then we could go down a variety of paths. Ms. Moran, some of those items that you talked about, the future evaluation policy, I mean, those are all things we have to get to at some point as well. So you would have me and any cabinet member you needed to be there with us.
okay. So first step, how are you feeling about the 14th and just making that all day? Because we'll do.
Yeah. I mean, I've already had to be off work because, for the half day anyway. So yeah, if we wanted to do the morning time for the review and then whatever we have left over of that into the afternoon, that could work for me for the first half day.
You two good with that?
It works for me.
Okay, so that would cover like part 1. So let's think I think starting with the strategic plan is a good idea, but how are you guys feeling, admin, about us diving into that on the 14th of June? Are you ready for us to use that to then move our next conversation forward?
What I would say about that is I'm not looking for completion and perfection with the strategic plan. I'm looking for just, again, a better understanding. We've had very brief conversations, and this is going to be a really important piece of this puzzle. So I'd like us to just have some more conversations about that.
President Zion will gladly be able to speak to strategic planning, where we're ending our year, as well as some things for the future. Yeah.
Okay, so then I think that we can do that, and then we just want to pick another half day after that. If we just do strategic plan that day, probably board stuff us getting to know each other and the strategic plan can just be that for the day, then we can do another half day where we can dive into goals for Dr. Davidson / district / us, which will be based on where we're headed with the strategic plan. But I guess can we just do a doodle thing and kind of figure out if we can find a day where everybody, would that be okay? This isn't an action item today. We're just talking about it right now. So we have an idea.
What's the time? Are we going to wait like until August for that, or we're still going to try and do that
So
in June or July?
My thought is that we'll put a few options in there and we'll see
Okay.
where if everybody can just say, here are the days I can do it,
Okay.
then we'll find a day that we'll hopefully find a day everybody can do it.
So we're not trying to keep them close together.
No, I mean, they don't have to be right next to, I mean, we in the past have had one month, one another month. They don't have to be right next to each other. That's fine. It'll give you time to kind of digest what we come out of this one, and then will help us guide our conversation the next time. So yeah, we'll just do that. But so we've got strategic plan, evaluation, goals, tool for Dr. Davidson. Are there any other topics that you would like to cover in our board retreat, Ms. Clymer?
No, my list mirrored that, in terms of superintendent goals, strategic plan, and policy review. I feel like just in our conversation, I had another thought, but I got sidetracked by the calendaring. So I'll wait until everyone else goes and then I might come back to me.
Okay. In our policy review, we might put that in with strategic plan just because we're not doing that yet. So we can probably cover like what that's going to look like at that date. So I think we can probably fit that in there.
Well, I think part of that will be important to discuss is the expectations for board members with that. I mean, that's going to be a lot of work on our part, and I'm not even sure exactly, but I would like to know in advance, like, what is the expectation of me so that I can plan accordingly for the year.
Yeah. Was there anything else? Did I miss anything for you, Ms. Moran?
No, that's everything I have.
Okay. Ms. Wallace, did you have any topics you wanted us to cover in the board retreat days?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Mr. Owens?
No, I think they're all covered.
Okay. Then we will get something sent out so we can figure out the second date, and we'll just add that first part to our June 14th. So even though we canceled a meeting in June, I have still taken just as much of your time, maybe more. Sorry, guys.
Okay, I'm sorry, one point of clarification. In the superintendent evaluation, or the part that we're discussing about that, will we go over the tool itself? And if there's any changes now that, because we're going to be doing the quasi evaluation, right, for year one.
Mhm.
And then are we going to be making adjustments to that, or can we discuss making adjustments to that? if
Yeah, my thought would
necessary?
be, we'll do that. So I don't want to do that day that we do his evaluation. I think actually it's better for us to break that up and have to sit with that and see how that went. But yeah, the plan is to talk
Yeah.
about, is this the tool? Are we going to create a new tool? Are we going to get a tool? Like what do we want it to look like? Because we know
Okay.
this year is kind of different. So
Yeah.
I feel like next year is going to look very different in how the evaluation goes. So
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're doing that prior to getting too far into the school
Yes.
year, because just to be fair, if we're going to change the evaluation criteria, I feel like we should be telling the person we're evaluating.
that's what I wrote down in here for the evaluation, basically the tool and the goals
Okay.
and the metrics.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so then we will get back to we will send us stuff out so you guys can help with figuring out what the date will be for that. If you think of anything else, we'll see what we can do about getting it added. Next up, hey, I'm done talking. We're going to do department surveys, and this is going to be presented by Dr. Doozy.
Okay, good evening, President Zinema, governing board members, my admin cabinet, the community. I'm here to present our district department surveys for 2023, 2024. The purpose of our presentation tonight is to provide the board members and the community a global review and analysis of our district department surveys, and then also share next steps of what we're going to use with this data. It is aligned to our current strategic plan, as it impacts academic success and how our departments run and organize our people, finance and resources, as well as service. So the why and the how. Why do we do department surveys and how were they done this year? So soliciting feedback from our employees about our district departments allows our departments to reflect with admin cabinet to review our employees' perspectives and use the trends to make decisions that impact the success, people, and finance resources, as well as our overall relationships in our district. How we respond to this feedback directly impacts our capacity to provide that quality customer service to our employees. Our purpose is our students and our staff, to support our staff so they can support our students. What is learned from these surveys will also be applied at the department level. So tonight I'm giving you a global view, but know that each of the departments have specifically analyzed their data alone, as well as their open-ended responses to contribute to their evaluation coming to the year end, as well as identifying scorecard goals for next year. Also, the strengths are also identified. We have to stop and take a breath, right? And celebrate things that we have accomplished and things that are going well, as well as those areas that we need to improve upon. We need to also figure out if we need to adopt practices that have brought great success, or if we need to abandon or adjust things that we need to do next. And then these findings will be part of our next strategic plan preparation. So this knowledge, as well as the surveys that we got at the beginning of this year or in November from the student, family, and staff surveys will all be part of our next steps for our strategic plan. So I did want to point out just the timeline and some adjustments because this survey was given a little differently than years past. One is this was given in April of 2024. In previous years, the survey was deployed in October of the beginning of a school year. The district department surveys were also deployed using different categories than years past. When admin cabinet reviewed these categories, we did agree that we wanted to make some changes so that this feedback that we were getting from staff was more specific for the people that they were giving feedback for. And I'll show you in the next slide why that took place. So I'm happy to report, we're still not there with how many participants, but we are growing. So by giving it spring 2024, we did have 354 participants, which is the most participants we've ever had since we've deployed the surveys in 2019. This overview, the next two slides, shows you the categories that I spoke about before. For example, admin cabinet was one department. So those filling out the survey could be filling it out for their perception of any of the cabinet members. So really to give us useful data on what's going well and what to do next was a little more unclear, right? And now by having the specific departments and who they're giving their perception of in the different areas that I'll share in the next few slides, we're really able to drill down and make more meaning of the survey data. So as you can see, there's several departments and then also members of the department. We had Studer add the members of the department just to make sure that it was clear to our employees when they were filling it out. It wasn't just a category, but the specific people that they were giving feedback on. And the slide just continues with the categories. So what we were measuring. So as staff filled out the surveys, they were able to give their perception on accessibility, which the prompt was, can we reach a live person or use an electronic tool to reach someone? Accuracy, did we receive the right products or services, or was a variation communicated? Attitude, what was it a nice experience? Did you receive service with a smile? Operations, do the day-to-day operations run both efficiently and effective? And then timeliness, was the response or solution delivered when promised? So the Likert scale was used for the employees to rate those attributes for each department from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Little different than the other surveys. It's very good, 5, good, average, poor, and very poor was 1. Overall mean was calculated, which all departments have a goal of achieving a mean of 4.5 or above. This indicates excellence of service from that department. The overall box top is also going to be provided tonight for you. What that means is the percentage of respondents who selected very good And what this tells us is that research suggests the difference between loyalty of a person that indicates something's extremely satisfying or strongly agree or very good compared to those are just satisfied or good and agree. So the box top rating really is a driving force in assessing if our employees are rating us in a way that it shows us that they really do feel like those areas are a strength. So here is the summary of all departments. So globally, in the area of accessibility, accuracy, attitude, operations, and timeliness. As I shared on the other slide, it's out of a score of 5. I will tell you comparatively, again, different departments, right? It was categorized differently, but our overall average last year was a 4.0 when you calculate all these departments together. And then as you can see, the overall box top reminding you that that means the people that filled out the survey, for example, in accessibility, 41.84% agreed it was very good. And then as you can see, the chart gives you an indicator for the overall mean for each area as well as the overall top box. I think I kept calling it box top. I'm used to collecting that for donations for children, but no, it's the top box. All right. I also am providing you tonight an overall look at by those departments. So you'll see a mean score for each department and as well as an overall top box score. So for example, the overall mean for the superintendent's office, which incorporated the superintendent and deputy superintendent, was a 4.38. And the overall top box was 53.94, meaning 53.94% strongly, not strongly agreed, said it was very good. And then as you can see, all the departments after, again, reading it the same way. This next slide just shows the other departments.
Dr. Doozy, I have a question for you. Do you mind if I ask right now?
Absolutely.
I think that you mentioned this above, but I just want to clarify. So the people that are filling out the surveys for these specific departments are people that would have interaction with them on a daily basis? Or like, for example, you know, if you see purchasing in warehouse, like if you're an instructional assistant, you might not have any coordination with them at all. So you would not fill out a survey for that department specifically if they are not in your weekly or monthly sort of communication pattern.
Yes, great question. Thank you, Mrs. Clymer. Yes, on the survey, it prompts you to only fill out surveys for those departments that you have had connection or interactions with.
Okay.
It doesn't quantify the amount of interactions, but it does say, you know, don't fill out surveys if you haven't interacted with the department.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have 2 questions, actually. So you mentioned that all departments have the goal of achieving a mean of 4.5 or above. Is that just specific to this year since this type of survey is new, or do you anticipate next year's goals to be a growth type percentage off of what they got this year? Or how will you, because some of these to go from where they are to a 4.5 would seem insurmountable.
Yes, definitely. Some departments are going to be addressing areas that they can improve upon at a rate that score might take longer to get a 4.5 to other departments that may be more quickly. The 4.5 actually came directly from Studer, which is a little different than the data they shared with us about the employee perception, staff, and student. They didn't specifically, they gave a lower range for that, but in the department survey, they did give, when I asked them, you know, what would be considered excellent service, and they said, according to their research, it's 4.5 and above.
Okay, and then related to that, what is there a goal, or what would we look at in the overall top box score to say, wow, that's where we want to be?
They said over 50%, if you're getting that very good and over 50% with a score of 4 or higher. But typically our departments, their goals aren't really focused on the top box numbers. They're focused on those overall mean. So our department leaders would have a goal maybe around timeliness to say, okay, we're going to increase from this to this. And it might not be the jump of 4.5. It might be getting to like from 3.8 to 4.2 or 4. But The goals typically are around the mean, not that a very good percentage.
Okay, my last just comment is that it's not surprising to me to see transportation and special education having low scores based on our staffing and operational challenges this year. Hopefully they have some low-hanging fruit that they can improve upon to get these scores up for next year.
Absolutely. That actually brings us to trends now. So open-ended responses. I did an analysis with our team here and let's see. So overall trends for open-ended, this is all global again. This is taking into account all departments. I didn't break it up into separate departments. We work together as a team to say overall open-ended responses. So the one trend is the call, kind of like a call to action, kind of a needed area of improvement. Improve accuracy of payroll, benefits, and requisition process. Provide more cross-training to ensure continuity during absences. Consider an online ticketing system to track issues and resolutions. We do have some ticketing systems now, but somehow maybe incorporating a more streamlined, and we do have some ideas for that. Streamline the onboarding process and paperwork. Staff appreciation, leadership that's visible, approachable, and listens to their concerns and provides clear communication. The new superintendent has made a positive impression in this regard. Outdated or inconsistent technology across schools is a common frustration for teachers. They want communication about technology upgrades. Positive feedback on added position of director of school safety and district's direction on increasing safety across all sites. Provide customer service training for all staff. Improve the HR handbook or online resources for employees. Provide more time for coaches to work directly with teachers. Ensure coaching support is equitable across all schools. Highlight and share best practices from high-performing teachers and schools. Many departments have improved communication and responsiveness yet, but there were still some areas that needed work. So that was a trend that it's improving, but there were still some areas that it also was something identified as an improvement area. Staffing shortages, especially in special education, are impacting service delivery and staff morale. Teachers want more support and solutions. Transportation has dealt with bus route cancellations, late pickups, drop-offs, and communication. However, bus drivers themselves are appreciated. That was said over and over again in the comments. So definitely a shout out to all our bus drivers. There is a perception that the district office is overstaffed compared to school-based staff. So those were the overall open-ended that showed a trend. I mean, there was one-offs in the comments, but those were things that were a trend or pattern in the feedback that we received. So as a group, we sat down and looked at all this data and we determined, what are we going to do next? We have this information. Our employees have spoke to us. What do we want to do now? So our next steps with this data, and as well as any recommendations the board may have this evening, is to continue improving communication from district leadership, share specific plans and timeliness of our initiatives, visit schools regularly, develop a clear multi-year capital plan to include all operational departments to address outdated equipment and inconsistencies between schools, communicate this plan to staff, implement special education stipends to hard-to-fill special education staffing for 24-25, which the board already graciously has approved for next year, so we're excited to see the impact. Begin creating the leadership community of practice and parent site council. This is a layer of support for our special educators, as well as our parents of special ed students. Support the new operations directors to overhaul operations, focusing first on improving department efficiencies, consistencies, timeliness, and communication with schools and parents. Implement and monitor new staffing standards across all school sites. As you know, with the ESSER funding, we did a different way that we approach staffing. So we need to ensure that we implement that now and monitor its effectiveness. Implement intentional staff recruitment plan to reduce contracted employee cost. Recognize great work by staff across all roles and departments. Boost morale by celebrating successes and individuals going above and beyond. Update and post HR handbook for accessibility for staff. Implement new workflow process for requisitions and approvals. Research digital platforms, digital platform next steps for onboarding new staff.
Continue seeking input from staff, parents, and students. Use surveys, committees, and school visits to gather feedback for ongoing improvement. Close the loop by sharing how this input is being used. Implement academic ambassadors for all certified teachers to become content experts in a specific area. Share these outcomes with our new department leaders. As you know, we have some new leaders coming on board for our department, so making sure they know this data and how it might influence their next steps. Continue to implement additional action steps to increase safety across sites. Point of entry cameras, bus cameras, Centegics are just some examples of our next steps. Create a committee to help improve programs focused on staff wellness. Use what we've learned as part of our next strategic plan. And then meet with admin council, and that's coming up on June 7th, I believe, or 6th. I can't remember. I think it's the 7th. 6th? Okay, we're meeting with admin council to identify strengths and areas for improvement and feedback for next steps. So we're going to get this data in the hands of a collaborative group to work through as well. So I will now pause and see if you guys have any questions.
Ms. Clymer.
I had one question specifically, and I think the trends are great. It's good when you can group things together and you start to see, cross department, what is being said, what people are experiencing. So I think you guys are on the right track. It sounds like the next steps are very much in line with this. And as we always see, no matter what job, no matter what role, like communication is the key, right? It's not the work you're doing. It's the way that you're communicating that work to others. So some of it is about the work, but usually it's about, they don't know what you're doing. And so a lot of those remedies seem to be here. So I think the next steps are in order. If you could go back to slide 16, the very first trend that you had in the open-ended responses was improve accuracy of payroll and benefits. I don't need to get in the weeds on all of these, but that feels alarming to me. So can you explain what they mean by that, or what kind of inaccuracies that we have in payroll that enough people are saying that it's a trend?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever we looked at this as a trend, what we noticed is it's really about communication and making sure that the communication is accurate. And also, with our new folks coming on board as a new team, to really make sure that that teachers, employees understand their benefits, because if there's a misconception, then they feel like something's not accurate.
Okay, understood. Thank you for clarifying.
Ms. Moran.
Yes. I really just have a comment. So I think it is a huge breath of fresh air to see the detailed feedback that our employees have given, because number one, that shows we're actually listening. And the fact that we're going to then do something with that, hopefully will foster additional trust and additional participation in the future. So I just think it is exactly what I would want to see, as far as admitting that we have areas to improve. Here's what you've said to us, and this is specifically what we're going to do with that going forward. In the past, we've gotten survey data, but we've never taken it, the administration has never taken it publicly, or at least to the board, to say, these are the steps that we're doing with that. So again, we're not going to get to a place of perfection, but at least we are aware of where our shortcomings are, and hopefully we will then all be able to work together to improve upon those. So I really appreciate this information.
Thank you.
Ms. Wallace.
I'm just going to echo what Kim said as well. Like on slide 23, the comment about close the loop by sharing how input is being used. I think that is the most important part in all of this, that the staff realizes that you care about our feedback and you are making changes to make us happy in these areas. And I think that your feedback, your survey, people taking your survey will go way up when people believe that what they're saying matters. And by closing that loop, by actually communicating exactly how that's being changed, I think that's so important. And I agree so much with what Kim said, that I think that will really boost morale and create trust with staff, that that we're listening and we're working towards their concerns.
Thank you.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo the echo. So sounds like you have a plan.
I mean, I agree with all the comments that have been made. So many times we hear from people like, why do we do this survey? It doesn't matter. They're afraid to give feedback, but feedback in here shows that you're going to listen to the good and the bad, and then we're going to do something about it. And that's so important. And I do think that it's going to increase the number of participants going forward. So I appreciate that you have put this out there and you're going to set goals. That 4.5 sounds really high to me. And I feel like we have never heard that number before as a board. So that seems extremely high and hard to get there. Although a couple people like superintendent's office pretty close. So, but I'm excited to see how this gets better because I do think our scores will improve just by sharing this information, just by saying we are going to make changes, and then they'll be able to see those changes happen because I have faith that you guys are going to do that. So thank you guys for putting this together.
Thank you, President Zaidema. I will say just our departments have worked really hard, and this mean score, the 4.5, definitely is an ultimate goal for that excellent customer service. But please know how very proud we are of our departments and just what a great year and what a service they've done to our children. So and our families and our staff. I mean, they're supporting our employees as well.
I don't disagree with that. And I think that seeing these numbers, some of the lower ones, like Ms. Moran said, we're not surprised by why those are like that. We know what kind of year we've had, but it doesn't mean that we don't have faith that the people are doing the very best they can, given the resources that they have, the people they have, the time that they have. So, I mean, I'm happy with everyone right now. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next presentation. It's going to be about Illuminate and some data on our assessments. This is going to be by Director Owen, not to be confused with Mr. Owens.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and nice to meet you, Member Wallace. This is the first time I've met you. My name is Brian Owen. I'm the Director of Assessment Accountability here for Litchfield. First thing I always like to do is just sort of state what my department's mission and vision are. And the main thing is I want to make sure we deliver the highest quality data out to the schools and also professional development. This is just sort of how the components align to our current strategic plan. We want to give you a couple of updates this evening. The first one is an Illuminate update. We just wrapped up year 2 with Illuminate. And I want to just kind of give you an idea about what we've done with it in year 1 and year 2 and kind of where we are going into year 3. So quick year 1 recap. This was the 22-23 school year. Basically, this was just making sure the system worked, making sure we got it set up, making sure accounts were set up, making sure students could log in so that they could test. Also, obviously, making sure we had tests for students to test. So we created a whole bunch of tests in July and August at the district level. And then district-wide trainings, basically making sure staff knew where to find it, students knew where to find it, knew how to log in, knew how to test, knew how to access their portal so that the students could see their own data. And then the other thing we did year 1, which kind of rushed a little bit, that was on my year 2 plan, but schools were ready for it, is we started rolling out training on how schools could create their own assessments, which was a big push in year 2. So year 2 really is about 2 main things for me, and that was custom report creation and training and district-wide rollout of staff creating, publishing, and administering their own assessments. So I kind of want to talk about those 2 things a little bit. The first thing is focusing on the data reports. So I did several different staff trainings at different schools. I also did site admin and site instructional coaches. I had created a lot of custom reports this year because now we already had a year of data in Illuminate. So I wanted to go out, show people, train on them, show them where to find them, what they're called, how to use them, what data is in it. And what I tried to do was align them to components of our letter grade formula so that they could monitor certain things as we were giving assessments throughout the year. And the main components here, the 10% acceleration readiness, 50% growth, and 30% proficiency. And these were, I had 5 or 6 whole staff trainings. And of course, site principals, assistant principals, and instructional coaches were also trained. this is the acceleration readiness component of the A through F letter grade formula. I have chronic absenteeism up here. This is actual schools data. So each staff training I did, I put the school's actual data for their target percentages. That's not something you could get out of Illuminate, but it's something I told them to monitor this year. And I gave them the actual percentage and said that just has to be lower, kind of a thing. But these trainings were also done before the winter data point came in. And so this is a K-8 example, but for grades, for the K-5 schools, I focused them in on grade 3 ELA minimally proficient. And for the 6-8 schools, I focused them in on grade 8 math, because these three components are components in the letter grade formula. And I said, when you get that data point in 2 weeks, 3rd grade, you're going to want to look at minimally proficient reading. And this is your target percentage. It must be lower. 8th grade, you're going to want to look at minimally proficient math and highly proficient math so that you could monitor that. Then another set of reports, and these 2 reports that I want to talk about are they're custom reports, and they're the 2 reports I think are the most valuable. So I had created them this year, and I wanted to make sure that I could roll them out, train on them. And what I do with these, I just called them intervention reports. These reports contain an entire year of data. So all of 22-23 math, district reading, state math, and state ELA. And what I do is I put them all together if we have them all, and I calculate a composite score. That composite score is an overall picture of how these students have scored over the last year, plus whatever data points we have as we went through this year. So this screenshot I took from one of the school's presentations. This was before the winter data point. In January, I added the winter data point. But what I like about this composite score is you can just rank order them. Click it once. This is ascending, low to high. These are the lowest scoring students over the course of the last year. So I want to make sure that they can rank order based on as many data points as the students have. And as they scroll down into higher composite scores, what we start to see are students that show going back and forth between 2 different proficiency categories. So this is a target group that I'd like to point out. These are students that are on any given test could be partially proficient or minimally proficient. So this is one of the target groups, are also between partially and proficient and between proficient and highly proficient. So I draw their attention to this report. And then when I did the PD, of course, we would have them do activities with their actual data as they're logging in with us. And then the other custom report that I think is one of the most valuable is this growth report. So I created this year and wanted to train on it. This comes from the state. This is the actual student level accountability file that contains the growth numbers for students. So this has 2 years of state test data, the student growth percentile or the student's ranking, and then the growth category, low, average, or high growth. And what we want to draw attention to here in particular, students that are low scoring but show average or high growth, and these are all current kids in Illuminate. So we want them to talk about those students who are higher scoring students but show low growth. What do we know about those students? And then another important group are low scoring students that show low growth. Those are important for the A through F letter grade calculation because those students would yield 0 points in both proficiency and growth categories. And then, so that's one major training push that I did this year with the custom reports and aligning different data reports to the letter grade calculation. The other one was getting schools and the teachers, instructional coaches to create their own assessments in Illuminate. They use other things too to create their own assessments. They have, middle schools have StudySync, they have Amplify for Science, they have iReady. So those curricular resources also have assessments that they use. But this, of course, is just for Illuminate. And after this training push this year, between November and about the middle of January, we did 2 surveys, just informal surveys, and the percentage that self-reported of staff users that are using it to create their own custom assessments, either the individual teacher is, or there's an instructional coach or a staff member on campus that creates it for the teachers, but the teachers are using them. as custom. It went from about 31 to 32% to 56%. And so this, I just wanted to show a screenshot. This is a student's actual profile page from this year. And it's not even all on there. I could keep scrolling down. This is a high-use school. And this is an example of what an assessment history report would look like for a student in a high-use school. So this is a school that is giving CFAs weekly. And of course, there also are district assessments are in here too, you can see. Any questions about year 2 in Illuminate?
Ms. Clymer, any questions so far?
No, not yet. I'll wait. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
I do have a question on slide 17, which we just looked at. So you're saying the percentage of staff usage of Illuminate increased to more than 56%. That's only the staff using Illuminate for CFAs.
Yep, for purposes that are not related to district assessments and district assessment data. So their own created assessments and data. Yep.
Okay. And is that number where we want it to be? I mean, what would success look like there for you?
To me, that's exactly where I'd like to see it, especially that was midway. Actually, this is the end of the year, but midway through, we were about 32%. But again, my 3-year implementation plan, rolling that component out to the schools for them to create their own assessments was for year 2. So I really thought, and plus they have other resources that they're using to create assessments. So I really thought that was about where I'd really like to see it. I don't know that with all of the other things they use to create assessments, if we could reasonably expect that to be in the upper percentages, 80 or 90.
Okay. Do you think in year 3, if the teachers who are using this with success are evangelizing the, good things about Illuminate, do you anticipate that number will go up in year 3, or do you think teachers will continue to do what they're doing now?
That's a good question. I think it'll increase. And the reason is because we have new staff coming on board too. So basically year 3 is an extension of everything we've been doing in year 1 and 2, which is continue training. And I think as new staff members come into the district, everything will be new. I know we do have some that have come in who have used Illuminate in the previous districts. I don't know about any of the other curricular resources, but because training is going to be an ongoing thing all throughout the year, that will probably go up with people coming in who have not been a part of using our other curricular resources up to this point.
Okay, great. I do have another question on the reporting piece. Obviously, you're really excited about these reports that you created, which I think is awesome. Tell me how or who would use these, and you did some training. So like here we're looking at, it looks like broad level data. So would a teacher use this? Would an instructional coach use this? Like, kind of break that down for me and what that might look like on a weekly basis.
So let's see, are you talking maybe this custom report?
Sure.
At the student level, or the intervention report, both the instructional coach and the teachers. And so when we did these professional development sessions, the instructional coaches were there. They planned the activities that the teachers would do using the data. And I just showed them how to access it, where to go, how to click. And then most of the instructional coaches had already exported the student level data into shared spreadsheets. And so the teachers themselves were asked to go in and look at their students and look at them in this way. So for the growth report, so these are the current students as the teachers are looking, is look at these students and reflect on what you see of these students that fall into these categories and come up with a plan. So those were sort of choreographed by the instructional coaches, but there were exercises for the teachers to do with their kids.
Okay.
Students.
And prior to Illuminate, would this information have been available or it would have been massaged by the instructional coaches in order to then provide that to the teachers?
Well, so both. So there's a percentage of teachers that will go in and do that themselves, but I think for a higher percentage, the instructional coach puts data together for them, I think is kind of how it works. But yes, in our old system, Inform, if you remember, we had for 12 years, those same custom reports I would put in. So this is just me using a new system to create the similar custom reports.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to get to, teachers aren't trained in school to use reports like this. So as a district, you are obviously one of the tools in trying to bridge that gap between making the data understandable and usable for teachers. But I guess what else are we you're doing a PD on these reports, but what other types of PD are we doing for that? And that's probably not a question for you,
Well, every month,
but you tell me.
the instructional coaches have instructional coach meetings. I know that, and some of those I get invited to go through some of these data reports. And really that's what we focus on. Where is it? Like, what is it called? What data is in there, and how would you be able to use this with teachers? And so, I mean, other data trainings, I guess, would take place during PLCs on campus with the instructional coach.
If I
Dr.
can add
Ducey?
on, if I can add on to that too, is one of the things that are going to be, kind of our next steps as Mr. Owen and I work together on this project is really teaching the teachers how they can create assessments from other assessment tools. Because right now they're thinking, oh, well, this assessment is in Wonders. The student takes it online, they get scored online. Why would I need Illuminate, right? Or iReady or Amplify. A lot of science teachers actually do use Illuminate for the Amplify assessments. But so one of the PDs that we really want to make sure that we get out next year is how you can create that assessment in Illuminate. And then that way you have one source, one place to go. Right now, they're not seeing it as something that's making things easier because it's like, well, I have it here. Why do I need to replicate it there? So teaching them how they can create those assessments in Illuminate, and then also using our instructional coaches and our district guiding coalition to maybe identify some assessments that we can put in a bank for the whole district to use. So I would say, in my mind, that's our next steps is, okay, we're using it for our benchmark data. We're using it to compare to ASA data, pre, mid, post, seeing where kids grow, but how can we really use it for the day-to-day for our teachers to make that data collection easier for them?
Okay, because obviously one of the reasons that we wanted to implement this was to take some things off their plate and make things easier. Would it potentially also result in better student scores because it's a consistent platform, or is that really not relevant?
Well, the thing about Illuminate is it's all standards-based content. And so iReady isn't quite like that. So if they want to focus in on specific skills, Illuminate is a great resource for them. And in fact, them creating, publishing, administering their own assessments, I think is the true power of Illuminate. Just reporting data and having district assessments, we've always had that. So bringing this system on gave the schools a very robust item bank as a resource to be able to pull items so that they're not creating their own while we're pushing. You have to do common formative assessments. You have to make these tests, because they reached out to us for years and said, why don't you give us something to be able to do that?
So tell me more about how the Illuminate platform works with the PLC process. Because I hear, in the PLC process, they're talking about results and did your technique work? Should we go to this? Like, can you piece all that together for me?
Right, yeah, definitely. So if they build their common formative assessment or their common summative assessment in Illuminate, then they're able to go to Illuminate, log in and see all their students' data and be able to analyze it without having to import in a spreadsheet or manually enter it. So really that's the power of Illuminate right now, is that the students take it online, it's assessed for them, students are categorized, it does analysis of question types, which choice that was wrong was the most frequent one. So teachers can really look at, well, why are kids getting that question wrong? Because they're all answering with the wrong answer. So looking at those patterns. So that's what I would say right now Illuminate is providing. It's if they do the CFA, they're able to use the different tools to analyze it.
Okay, so what can we do, or what are you already doing to encourage more teachers to use it? So we said, maybe putting a bank together, but I guess that kind of goes back to my original question, which is, is 56% success? It sounds like maybe it's not, but I don't know.
I would hope that it would be more. I think it's a tool that really, if the teachers find their rhythm with it and use it, it will make their lives easier, because those formative assessments are kept from year to year. So you could tweak them, you could change the question type. So it really creates where you're not going, where did I put that? Was that in Wonders? Was that in iReady? It really gives them their kind of a running journal, of everything they've done for the year. So I think it's training, honestly, and I think it's making sure that all of our schools build that automaticity and that comfort level where they don't feel like it's something else. So I know when Brian said that 56%, he felt really good about. I agree. Like for this second year of the rollout, seeing, Wonders. I know the curriculum was adopted during COVID, but really we've really drilled down and trained in the Wonders curriculum. Brand new Amplify curriculum for middle school. iReady is in its second year. So we have a lot of moving new, right, that teachers are trying to learn. So I think honestly, to get those numbers up, it's about training and time to implement, right? Not just, hey, I'm getting the training, but let me actually get in there, do it, apply it, see how easier it will make my life be. Because those that aren't using it, I think if you'd ask them, why don't you use it? It's because, well, I can do this and it's much faster and easier because I already know that, but definitely what we've accomplished this year with increasing our usability, I'm proud of, but yeah, definitely, to really get out of Illuminate, in my opinion, the cost of what we pay for Illuminate, I would like to see those numbers higher, but be realistic that teachers are going to still use other methods to assess, but how can we build more of those in Illuminate?
Yeah, and that's where the teacher agency comes into play. They know their own capabilities and what's going to work for them best. And I apologize, I did not mean to insinuate that 56% was not fantastic in year two. I guess I'm in agreement with Dr. Duzzi that I would hope over time we would see more and more teachers come onto this platform, because we do know that it could be good overall in the long run. So kudos on the increased percentage. It is only year two. This is going to be a multi-year platform, and hopefully we continue to learn and grow with that.
Ms. Wallace,
I don't have any questions right now.
Mr. Owens?
No questions.
I don't have any questions right now either. Thank you.
Thank you. So the second part of this presentation, I want to give an update, really an assessment update and then achievement update, because we just got done with the end of the year. And of course, that's our post-test that was taken end of April, right at the beginning of May. So I want to look at first the assessment. So year one was the first year with Illuminate. So we created all new assessments in the new platform. That was the summer of 2022. So this would have been July. And then going into August, we recreated, well, not recreated, we created new K through 8 math tests and 2 through 8 reading tests. And then for year two, this is now the summer of 2023. A lot of this work was done at the very end of May and the beginning of June. As soon as I got the state assessment results, which is work that I will be doing this summer on these assessments, I analyzed our district assessments last year, which is an item analysis, and then and I equated them. That's kind of part of the same process. And we went through a massive revision. So another thing that we did as a district is we defined focus standards. So one of the things we wanted to do with the benchmarks was align the benchmark content to the focus standards better. So now about 70 to 80% of the test content on those district tests are aligned to focus standard by grade levels. And then we also changed the mid-year administration for this year. So now the fall, winter, and spring tests are the same tests. And we'll look at what that data looked like this year. And I do not plan to revise tests again next year. One of the things that we have done every year since the 18-19 school year is revise test in some way. And so what happens is we don't really know exactly what it means. as we go through the school year. And so after I do the equation study between our district tests and the state tests next year with the same test, we'll have comparable data year to year, and we'll know a lot more about what the data is telling us as we get it throughout the year. We also administered a science benchmark pilot that I will analyze this year. I want to see if it's feasible to implement a science benchmark. I would like to see more of an emphasis on science in 5th and 8th grade. And then we'll see you right at the end of this. We also administered the state civics test through Illuminate to our 8th grade students for the first time this year. So those are what the results look like. What I'm looking for here is just consistency from the fall to the winter to the spring, because it's the same test, so they're completely comparable. One of the things that we would see in the past when the winter test was a different form of the test, like a form B, is we'd see results where the fall scores would actually be higher than the winter scores. Or the winter scores would be really high and then the spring scores would come down. So what I wanted to see was, as the school year went by, do these data points look like they're increasing at about the same rate, which is what I would expect to see. And I do see that. Now, my other fear, of course, this is the work that I will do this summer, is are we seeing it's sort of an artificial inflation of scores because students have seen this test 3 times. So that's work I'm going to be doing when I equate it to the state test. This is what it looks like overall. This is percent correct, by the way. And then I wanted to look to see what the sort of the major student groups look like. And I see a lot of consistency here. This is math by student group, and then reading. We are monitoring a couple of different student groups at some schools because of the federal accountability system. We had 5 schools this year accept ATSI grant funds. So we have reporting that we have to do on those ATSI recognized subgroups at those schools. And then a quick update on the civic assessment we gave this year. It's 100 multiple choice item test. We gave it over the course of 2 weeks. 1,052 students took the test at 80% pass rate. And of course, I just reported these to the state. Actually, we were required to report our results. I just did that today. And I will make sure I send an electronic data file to the high school, because it is a graduation requirement for our 8th graders, so that our high school here knows which students have passed, so they don't have to take it again. And then I'll also be mailing home student reports with the state reports throughout June when we send those home. And also just a shout out, special thanks to everyone who helped make this happen. That's quite a few people, actually. Holly, Allison. I'm going to miss a bunch of people.
This is your Oscar moment. You have to say the whole long list of people.
Well, I'm trying to
Your
think of everybody.
agent,
There are people that I don't even know helped.
All the people that helped. We thank
Everybody,
you.
thank you. We got it off the ground.
Okay, Ms. Clymer, did you have any questions on the data?
I don't have any specific questions on the data. Thank you for putting this all together. It's really easy to understand for the most part. I will say I was surprised that in terms of like slide 22, 23, and 24, where you have the overall results and you break it down by group, math and then reading. It's interesting to me that every single category for fall, winter, and spring is identical. I mean, there's nothing out of whack. There's no winter that's less than fall. There's no spring that's, I mean, I understand what you said, maybe because they're taking the same test, so they're, you're going to see some improvement, but that's remarkable in all 3 categories, that nothing is, I mean, everything's almost even percentage wise, kind of the same increase and whatnot. So, is there any other explanation for that? I mean, it just seems like that would be odd that every single one of them would be identical.
No, so the tests are blueprinted to the whole grade level. So when they first enter the grade level, they're not expected to know most of what's on the test, because they will be taught that information that year. We especially see that at the lower grades, and actually the higher math grades too, is that students know a very small amount of the content on the test. And then when we hit halfway through the year, about half of the content has been taught. And then when, of course, we hit the end of the year, and this was taken after the state assessment, so the very end of April into the first week of May, we should see the highest scores, because now the most of the content, or all of it up to that point, in some cases, has been taught. And so that's one of the things I was looking for, was, do I see a jump from fall to winter or winter to spring, which might tell me something about students are learning more of the content during a certain time period than another. So I was looking to see if it would be a nice even jump. I didn't want to see one data point in a grade level or multiple grade levels that seemed outside of that pattern.
Yeah, understood. Understood. My other question was about the connection to the PLC process that's already been asked. So that's good. Thank you very much. My last is not a question, more of a comment is, well, I guess there's a question at the end, is you mentioned in the beginning section about sort of targeted percentages. I think it's on slide 10 or 11, where we're targeting specific things that would increase our school letter grade scores. And I just want to make sure that I think those are important. We obviously think the school letter grades are important. But we also know that one overall score cannot determine the success of every school, right? That criteria or that formula is for every single school in the state. And we know that that is not representative of all the schools in our district specifically. So I just want to make sure that, yes, we are using that to target those, because those are very important, but that every school or grade level or whatever is sort of has their own targeted percentages. And they, as a teacher in fourth grade at Barbara Roby or whatever, like, I know what my targeted percentages are outside of my school letter grade. I mean, is that an accurate statement? Like they would know that they have that. So we're not just teaching to the test, so to speak.
And they do. So at the beginning of the year, the principals set goals on their scorecard, and then they have the teachers set their own grade level goals.
Okay.
So they are also monitoring their progress toward their goals.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
I already asked most of my questions, but I do have a comment on the benchmark data. So I think the benchmark results are really impressive, and that they show that our teachers are not only efficient, but effective in impacting our students and helping them to learn and grow. So I'm really excited to see what the state assessments have to say. And then of course, how that translates into our letter grades as well. So, but based on this, I think it's going to be great. So.
Ms. Wallace?
I don't have any questions either. I think that it will be a great tool, especially for the PLC process, if all teachers within that grade level use this same assessment. If you're not using the same assessment, it's very hard to do PLCs. So I would encourage the teachers to all use the same form of assessment with using this. It will help the process quite a bit.
Mr. Owens?
I have no questions. Thanks for the data.
I don't have any questions either. I am also very encouraged by the growth that our students had. I think our benchmarks are a much better indicator of how we're doing with our kids than a once-a-year state test, because this shows where our kids start versus where our kids end. So I appreciate the work that you and all the people that work with you do to being able to track this and see how our kids are doing, because this tells me more about how we're doing and how we're educating our kids. So thank you very much.
President Zaidama, if with Mr. Owen up there and with Ms. Benjamin here, can I just ask a question regarding the slide for our civics test? I think that's there's some real good data and important data in there. And I want to make certain we all understand the significance of that. So I'm going to ask Ms. Benjamin just to highlight what that all means and how that relates to our kids' future, just so everybody understands, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So we were asked by Agua Fria at the beginning of the year if we could provide this test to our 8th grade students. They typically do this in 10th and 11th grade. However, the standards are really at the 8th grade level. So we had a team come together from our teaching and learning department along with Brian Owen to put this all together. And it was the feedback that we received from teachers and from students, as well as the results, are pretty powerful. Our students are leaving Litchfield already meeting their first criteria to be eligible to graduate high school. If that is not preparing our students with the Litchfield learner, I don't know what is. So we had 857 out of 1,069 eighth graders pass on the first try. And they will have multiple tries in high school. Also, we provided this same test to all of our students who receive resource services with special education or an IEP. And the state says that those students already automatically pass. They don't need to take the test, but we wanted our students to be able to do that. So we also have in this data, students who weren't required to take it pass, and others who at least had the experience for it. So really powerful, super exciting. This was hard work, and our students are already prepared to graduate high school as they're going in to become ninth graders.
Do you happen to know what the first time pass percentage is for students in general that attend Agua Fria? I mean, is it 80%? I guess is what I'm asking. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just interesting because I mean, I do agree that, I mean, 80% in general for a first time test of information that they're not required to know in this format at that time is impressive, but I'd love to see because, you know, we're sending these kids to Agua Fria, but there's other kiddos that go to Agua Fria as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that compares if they don't pass in the eighth grade and then they are, you know, they wait until 10th or 11th grade when they're learning different skills and different standards between that. Are they more or less likely to pass the test once they get to high school? I'm not sure. And is the reason they asked us to take this test is because they wanted to give students a better opportunity, I mean, in terms of when they're learning the information? And do they not have to physically take the test during the time they're in high school?
The state actually has it 7th through 12th grade that you can take
Okay.
the test to pass. And Agua Fria had found that looking at the standards, they definitely fit more of the middle school standards in social studies and history. But I think also it was providing them an additional chance. They at least could see what it looks like, and it's preparing those students who might not pass that first time to hopefully pass that second time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Did anybody else have any questions? Okay, then thank you very much. This information was very, very good, and we appreciate you putting all this together for us all the time.
You're welcome. Also, Katie Wood, all the social studies teachers for administering the assessment, the principals for supporting.
Thank your family and your dog. Don't forget anyone, your agent, you know.
Okay, guys, that was our last presentation for the night. Ryan, you're up.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I was second.
Having a motion for Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Moran, I will call for the vote. Ms. Clymer,
Yay.
Ms. Moran,
Yay.
Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Mr. Owens.
Yay.
I'm a yay. Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for joining us tonight, guys.